Good evening, I'm Paul Offodds, and it's time for your Royals postseason report. Today, the Royals beat the Twins. The Guardians are still playing as of this recording. The Royals are 3 games back of the Guardians for the division lead, and now ahead of the Twins for second in the division and the second wild card by 2.5 games. As of this recording, here are your Kansas City Royals playoff odds. Baseball Reference, 95.1%. Baseball Prospectus, 88.7%. Fangraphs, 91.3%, with 11.5% odds to win the division. Their magic number for the final wildcard berth is lucky number 13. We now return you to your regularly scheduled Royals Rundown podcast.
Break out the brooms, baby. The boys in blue swept the Minnesota Twins out of Kauffman Stadium. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast. I am Jacob Milham. He is Jeremy Greco, and I'm already cutting him off. That's how it's
you know who doesn't want to talk about it?
Who?
Rocco Baldelli.
I'm sure he has words.
He goes to do his post-game press conference, says, "That was an unprofessional series of baseball we played, and that's all I've got for you. No other comments or questions." He was done.
Woo! Well, Rocco, it's unprofessional from the top to the bottom, apparently. There, all right. So let's keep that in the back pocket.
Somebody had a terrible weekend in Kansas City, and it wasn't us.
Nope, it was not. No barbecue is going to soothe the burn that the Kansas City Royals just gave the Minnesota Twins in Kauffman Stadium. But if you're celebrating like us, if you're happy like us right now, you could have been happier if you were following along with other Royals fans over at RoyalsReview.com. Plus, if you don't check them out, you would have already missed a great slate of weekend articles, game threads, game recaps, and much, much more only at RoyalsReview.com. So, Jeremy, just to set the table for everyone to understand where we are right now, we are about 15 minutes after the final pitch in Sunday's tilt against the Twins. The Royals now, after that 7-game losing streak, are on a 4-game winning streak. The longest active such streak in Major League Baseball. A good time to be getting hot, and especially after you were cold for a long, long time. Yes. So I'm happy about it. How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm part of me is a little frustrated because I'm over here telling everyone I know ball, and then I said the Royals are going to go 1-2 this weekend, and then they sweep them. Of course, I think at this point I'm going to credit Rocco Baldelli with an amazing choke job as a manager. For one thing, I feel like single-handedly handed the game to the Royals Saturday night. Not single-handedly. He did have some help from Joan Duran and Griffin Jacks. But I cannot identify a reason why should have pulled, what's his face, the starting pitcher. Bailey Ober from that game. Yeah. Bailey Ober had a one-hitter going, and he only had, his pitches were in the 80s. There was no reason he couldn't come back for the 8th inning. And sure, have Duran up and ready to go. If you think that, things could go south, one runner gets on, all right, let's go to the bullpen now. He's obviously done. He's the 4th time through the order. But he just pulled him. And then Duran came in, and Duran has not been nails this year, and especially not lately. No. Griffin Jacks has been very good this year, but you bring him into a tough situation against a team that can smell blood in the water, on the field, wherever it was.
They smelt it.
And bad things happen.
Yeah, they really do. And the Royals, for once, were on the right end of bad things happening.
Yeah. Well, that was my headline, was that the Royals are on the other end of a bullpen implosion for once.
Exactly. And we will be talking about a couple specific bullpen arms later on in the show. But yeah, this is a great rebound from that 7-game losing streak, kind of balancing out a little bit. You still look over their last 10. The Royals are 4-6, not a good spot to be, but just like those postseason odds show, this is the time to be getting hot. Okay. Yeah. Just like we were all saying, the sky is falling because they've gotten cold this time. Well, these four games that they have won, now have even more leverage towards securing that October berth.
It's amazing what a 4-game winning streak does to this team right now, because after the 7-game winning streak, everyone was bailing out saying, what's going to happen? Are the Royals ever going to win a game again? You know, et cetera, et cetera. And then what happened is, you know, they won the 4 games, but this means that over this 20-game TM, or Gauntlet Part 2, as I like to call it, because we already had a gauntlet. The Royals, the worst they can do now is 8-12, which is where we kind of started at the beginning. Was like, if they go 8-12 over the stretch, that's not bad. And meanwhile, if they go 8-12, they will have gone 7-3 against the division rivals in that stretch.
Yeah,
which. Like, if you're going to win, if you're only going to beat 2 teams, beat the 2 teams that are ahead of you in your division.
Yes, we see the value of that right now, because the Royals went from like very much behind the Twins in the standings. Now they have a 2.5-game lead on them in not only the divisional standings, but in the wild card standings as well. That's a lot of buffer. And now we're at the point where the Royals don't have to worry about the other 3 teams that are kind of in this mess, trying to put some sort of winning baseball together to get into the postseason. All right, the Boston Red Sox still don't want to get into October baseball, I guess. That's what
they just gave one away to the White Sox.
They did.
The Royals are now 6.5 games ahead of all 3 of the teams that are over 500 that are not wild card teams. 6.5 games with 18 to play.
Massive.
That is like, we're talking climbing Mount Everest to catch the Royals at this point. And, you know, I already wrote Friday, I posted it Friday. I wrote it 2 weeks ago at this point, or a week and a half ago, that the Royals are going to the playoffs and those 3 teams cannot catch them. And that only solidified over the weekend as the Royals swept the Twins and we got that much closer to the end of the year.
And just to reiterate what you said, and I didn't believe it at the time, but these 6 teams that we see in the AL standings, I firmly believe now that those are the 6 teams we will see on the AL side of the bracket. There's not really Boston has the talent. They're 3-7 into their last 10 games. They dropped the game to the Chicago White Sox. Like,
their bullpen is, people think the Royals bullpen is bad.
Yeah.
Look at the Boston bullpen with Kenley Jansen in it.
I know, right?
Here's the Fangraphs playoff odds up to date as best I can get them.
Okay.
For those 3 teams, the Red Sox have a 10.1% odds to make it to the postseason. The Mariners are at 4.9% and the Tigers are at 5%.
Dang.
These are long shot odds.
Yeah.
Just super long shot odds. I mean, the Royals, as Paul noted, or we officially started here, are, they only have 11-ish% odds to win the division. Now, those will go up if, I don't think Fangraphs had yet counted the Royals win. Certainly hasn't counted the results of the Guardians game, which has not completed yet as we're recording this. If the Guardians lose to the Dodgers, which I expect them to do, as they've split the series and the Dodgers are just that much better than the Guardians, then the Royals will be 2.5 games with 18 left, which is that is enough of a difference that's hard to catch.
Yes, it is. It is very hard, especially when, Cleveland is still playing 500 ball right now, slightly above 500 over their last 15 or so games. But we saw in the Guardian series, like, I remember seeing the graphic that showed how streaky they have been since the All-Star break. And we've talked so much about, like, hey, they haven't been this gargantuan, like, they're not a powerhouse after the All-Star break. They built up a pretty hefty lead, and since then they've been vulnerable, I think is the word that I'm looking for.
And they're currently making all kinds of moves to try and fix to patch the bullpen for the rest of the way.
Yeah.
They just waived Scott Barlow today, old friend Scott Barlow. So he was not contributing enough. And they said, all right, we got to try something because the arms that we know we can count on. Let me know if this sounds familiar. The arms we know we can count on aren't enough to get us all the way to victory every night.
Wonder how that works. Yeah. And they, so if I haven't seen an update on this, but I do know, I think it was Gavin Williams who left the game early for them Saturday night. And that is, so like they had an impromptu bullpen game yesterday. So
that doesn't help.
Yeah. Or hold on, excuse me. Yeah, I think he got pulled for injury. Either way, he looked atrocious against the Dodgers. I will say that. But all that to say, the Royals are not just in a good spot right now, they are in a great spot. Okay, like I firmly believe that. Now, I already said we're going to talk about the 2018 class here in a little bit, but I do want to go ahead and pivot to this next series they have in this gauntlet, the final series. They travel to the Bronx to face off against the New York Yankees,
which could be a preview of a wild card series.
It absolutely could. So I will admit to the listeners, it's been so long since the Royals have been in the postseason picture. I had to double check with Jeremy on like, hey, this is how this works, right? Like this is how it's going to look. So right now, if the playoffs ended today, the Royals would face off against the Baltimore Orioles. However, there is one loss separating the Yankees and the Orioles. From one team is going to be the number 1 seed with a bye, and the other team is going to be the number 4 seed and having to host a wild card series. So that's a pretty big difference, if you ask me. Also, side note on that, if the Royals continue their current trend, and let's say somehow they take the division lead away from the Guardians, the Royals would be the number 2 seed over the Houston Astros. So maybe if the Guardians struggle a little bit more, the Royals stay hot against the Yankees. Maybe that's something we should really be watching.
The Astros got swept by the Diamondbacks, didn't they?
Yes, if I remember correctly. I haven't been scoreboard watching them too much.
Yeah,
because
the Royals got to be in the division lead before I get too excited about whatever the Astros are doing. But they're having some weird times over there.
Yeah, that they are. Sorry, back to the Yankees. I think this is going to be a very good series. I think this is going to be a very fun series. The Royals they're not getting Garrett Cole, so that will be good. But we are expected to face off against Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, and Luis.
Can you say his last name again?
Carlos Rodon.
Rodon, I think is how it's pronounced. But I definitely heard an N, like a Rondon or Rondon, the first time you said it. But that might just be me.
I was reading a little fast there. Sorry about that.
All right, so Rodon.
Yep, Stroman, and then Luis Gil.
So Gil's probably the scariest of those 3, if I have my numbers right.
Yep, 13-6 on the season with a 3.24 ERA.
That would be Reagan's would be pitching that game if I have the Royals right. So that's the best Royals pitcher going.
Yes, it is.
Singer Lugo Reagan's. Do I have that right? Yeah.
This is going to be a good one, I think. I think it's going to be a great series.
The Yankees are scary. We saw them, in Kauffman, and they kicked the Royals' butts at the beginning of the first gauntlet, and it was scary. It's like, oh no, are the Royals deteriorating in front of us? And then the Royals bounced back and everything was fine. And again, if the Royals get swept by the Yankees, still 8-12 over the gauntlet part 2, not the end of the world. Then they have 15 more games against some also rans and some barely rans.
Yes.
So there's a lot of opportunity to pick up a lot of wins over that final 15 game stretch. Now, if you really want the division, probably got to take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. And that sounds impossible after what we saw earlier this year. But let me tell you, the Yankees took 2 out of 3 from the Cubs.
Yes.
But before that, they lost each of their previous 3 series. They had lost it. I had it pulled. Oh, no, here it is. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Rangers. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. And they lost 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. These are none of those are world-beating teams. No. They only took, and before that, they took 2 out of 3 from the Rockies. So they couldn't even sweep the Rockies. They did take 2 out of 3 from the Guardians. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Tigers.
Wow.
So they're kind of all over the place, right? I go back a little bit further. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels. They only took 2 out of 3 from the White Sox.
Yeah.
This is not a team that is unbeatable right now.
I think that's what we need to take away from that is
they're suffering from some injuries. There's been a lot of unrest in New York because Jason Dominguez is not on the big league roster because they believe for whatever reason that Alex Verdugo is the guy, and the stats say that Alex Verdugo is not the guy.
Absolutely not the guy.
So
but that's neither here nor there.
This is a series where I again predicted the Royals would lose 2 out of 3 a couple of weeks ago. But I look at it now and I think 2 out of 3 is really possible.
I think it is.
If they take 2 out of 3, Jacob,
they
would have gone 10-10 in the gauntlet with a 7-game losing streak.
Yeah, like that's I'm sorry. I think that would be awesome if they salvage a 10-10 record out of this 20-game stretch with a 7-game losing streak in there. That's the kicker.
And that was the losing streak was so weird to me. Now that it's in the rear view mirror, it was so weird to me that it's like the Royals haven't lost 4 in a row all year, and then all of us like Vinny got hurt and the team just kind of sunk for a little bit, and they're back up now.
They are.
Grossman, Gurriel, and for all that people were telling me, oh, the Royals are digging in other people's trash. There's no way they're going to make it to the postseason with other teams' trash. Well, it turns out one team's trash can be another team's treasure.
Yes.
Those 3 have all been above average hitters for the Royals since they came to Kansas City. Tommy Pham was a guy that I think I said this, made a lot of sense to me as a guy who you put him on a winning team and he's going to play better.
Yep.
He wants to win. He does not like losing, and he can be, as we've seen in the past, he can be kind of a guy that is a little frustrating to be around when your team isn't winning. But when your team is winning, he's good. He's happy. He's ready to go out there all fired up. So this is working out for the Royals right now. And now with the 28 guys on the roster, with Gurriel's hurt. He's still dealing with a leg injury, has been since before the Royals traded for him. But Hunter Renfroe came back, so we can kind of mix and match some guys. They got the lefty Rodon tomorrow. And this is where having these guys is going to be huge, is that instead of seeing Frazier leading off, and Garrett Hampson in the lineup, we're going to see Tommy Pham and Robbie Grossman, who love left-handed pitching.
Yes, he does.
They love it. They love it. They think it's the best thing that's ever happened. So we got a couple guys who can. The Royals have struggled against left-handers all year long.
They have.
And now we've got a couple guys who can do some damage against left-handed pitching.
It should be fun. So I will say, for all the celebrating that we can do about the racking up the wins in the win-loss column, I will admit, the lineup has not been amazing since ending the 7-game losing streak. They have been productive, I think, especially in comparison to where they were this time a week ago, but they still do have a lot of room to grow.
They had a stat on Friday night's broadcast. Did you get a chance to watch Friday night's broadcast?
No.
The Royals Saturday night's broadcast. The Royals entering Saturday night's game. And I've said this year, all year long, I said, as long as the other team hasn't scored more than 2 runs, I'm not panicking yet. The Royals all year long, when the other team scores 3 or fewer runs, not even 2, 3 or fewer runs, the Royals were 62-7. Now they're 64-7.
It's pretty damn good.
First of all, that's 71 games where they held the other team to 3 runs or fewer. That's how good their pitching has been this year. For all the angst about the bullpen's pitched in all of those games except for one.
Yes.
When Seth Lugo pitched the shutout.
True. It seems simple enough, but yeah, that's an excellent point. And I do this will be our bridge to talking about those 2018 pitchers we want to talk about. So, including their 2 scoreless innings today, because Michael Wacha racked up his 12th win of the season, his 100th
of his career.
Yeah, so congratulations to him. Pitched a great 7 scoreless innings, so only 2 innings of work for the Royals to fill in there. But it was 2 scoreless innings, one from Chris Bubich, the other from Lucas Erceg. Including those 2, the bullpen is not allowed to run in its last 12 innings of work. Okay, that sounds like a lot. Sometimes it's not if the starters don't go. But for these starters, that dates back to the 9th inning of Tuesday's game against the Cleveland Guardians. So you're telling me that nearly in a calendar week, the Royals bullpen is not allowed a run. That's great.
The starting rotation during this 4-game stretch has bounced back in a big way.
Yes.
Where they're pitching, all of those guys are pitching like they were at they had kind of a rough stretch there, especially during that 7-game streak where they were struggling to prevent runs. And then you go to the bullpen to try and keep it from getting out of hand, and that doesn't work. That's not what this bullpen can do for you. This bullpen says, oh, we're already losing? Well, let's just give up a few more runs. What does it matter?
Yeah.
So, but the starting rotation these last 4 games, even Alec Marsh in Saturday night's game, 5 innings was all he gave us, but they were 5 innings, 2 runs, no walks, no home runs. Those are the keys for Alec Marsh. I said it since before the season. If he can reduce the walks or the home runs, he's an effective starting pitcher. He reduced both Saturday and kept the Royals in it. And then Daniel Lynch came in, and boy, he looks like a real weapon in the bullpen right now.
Yes, he does.
3 shutout innings to keep it close. That was the one time I think we've seen in a while where the bullpen said, oh, it's close, I'll keep it here. Let's see if the offense wakes up.
And those are the 2 guys that we wanted to talk about from this 2018 draft class, or primarily because, listen, what was it? It was just like this point last year where kind of ready to punt on the 2018 class as a whole, especially, Jackson Kowar is not even in the Kansas City organization anymore. Jonathan Bolin is in Omaha, and he hasn't been stellar in limited MLB opportunities. But right now, a good portion of this of the successful Royals pitchers, like guys that we can point to and say, hey, I trust these guys coming out to the mound, are from 2018. Brady Singer, Chris Bubich, Daniel Lynch IV, just to name a few. And you spoke about Daniel Lynch. I just want to go back to like when he came back up to pitch for the Royals, because his first appearance was against Cleveland on August 26th. So we're going back a little bit here. In that span, he has not given up a run. He's only given up 3 hits. He got his first career save, so congrats there, that 3-inning save that you were talking about. And I get it. He's got two outings where he just needed to get an out. Cool, that's fine. Quatrero brought him out. Just to get that one out, though, is still valuable. And overall, he is helping this team win. That's all we can ask. His FIP, I also like that a lot. I like that number, 1.75 in limited action.
What actually excites me about Lynch is the wide variety of appearances he's made. He's had a couple 3-inning appearances. He's had a couple 1-out appearances, a couple 1-inning appearances.
Yep.
He is not a reliever that you're like, well, he has one thing he can do. You're like, we need bulk from you, please, Danny boy. Get us some innings. And he does. Dan, we need 1 out. Get us 1 out. Get this tough lefty out. And he does. He has looked like a completely different pitcher since being recalled at the end of August. His fastball has more life to it. He's getting more swings and miss on all of his pitches. This looks like a legit guy. So you've got a legitimate middle of the rotation starter in Brady Singer that some people want to say he's one or whatever. He's almost in it. He's not, he's a 3 pushing towards a 2. Okay. Yeah. That's very good.
Yes, it is.
Then you've got Daniel Lynch, who looks like he's nails right now. You've got Chris Bubich, who's the setup man in this bullpen right now, and I still think could be a mid-rotation starter if they give him that opportunity next year. Mm-hmm. And then don't forget Kyle Isbell was also in that draft.
That's
starting center fielder. And I know people don't like his bat, and there's not a lot to like about his bat, but he's a decent base runner, and he's a tremendous defender.
Yes.
Center field in, according to at least one of the broadcasts I listened to this weekend, the biggest outfield in baseball. Damn. According to that broadcast, they said this specifically, the Royals outfield, Kauffman Stadium outfield, is bigger than the Rockies outfield.
Wow.
That is a big outfield, and you need a good center fielder to patrol that, because Kauffman Stadium is actually a pro-offensive environment.
Yeah.
Hitters generally will have better numbers in Kauffman than in other stadiums because of the huge outfield. Mm-hmm. And Kyle Isbell taking hits away from guys, taking runs away from guys is incredibly important in an outfield of that size.
Yes, it is.
So you're looking at a starting center fielder, mid to upper mid rotation starter, and at least two really good relievers, possibly another mid rotation starter out of one draft. That's a good draft.
It is.
And Jackson Kowar, as bad as he was, maybe turned into another decent starting pitcher if Kyle Wright recovers from his injury successfully next year.
That's fair. Okay. And hey, I do want to walk one thing back. So Jonathan Bolin, I spoke about him in Omaha. I didn't mean to have a negative tone, especially considering just Saturday night he tossed an immaculate inning against the Memphis Redbirds, his hometown. So that's an amazing moment for him. Was all in on him pre Tommy John. He was kind of like that first guy. You know, I remember it was like Alex Duvall at the time talking about him, and I was like, okay, all right, this is all right. And Alex kept talking about this first baseman that he was all in on. I was like, yeah, no, that guy's an 11th round draft pick from Old Dominion. He's really not going to be that important down the stretch. But Jonathan Bolin is, all right. He's going to be an opening day starter one day. Nah, that didn't happen. Injuries happen, but right now Bolin is doing what he can in a relief role. I think is where he will see some more MLB action.
Yeah, he could seriously compete for a relief role next season.
Yes.
It looks like he's not going to get that shot this year, but man, Chris Stratton doesn't need to be back. Will Smith doesn't need to be back.
No.
John Schreiber doesn't need to be back.
No.
So they're going to have some holes in the bullpen to fill. They're obviously going to want to try to go outside the organization, bring in some competition, fighting. You know, he'll be fighting with guys like Carlos Hernandez and other people who are here now who maybe they don't need to be guaranteed a spot next year.
Yeah, and I do have an article coming out tomorrow talking about like 4 guys who I think are pending free agents, not like guys with options or anything like that, true free agents who I don't think should be back. Unfortunately, Will Smith is like the only reliever that is a true free agent that I don't think should be back next year. But it's strange because right now, as a Royals fan, like most folks are usually tuned out by September, right? They're already looking towards the hot stove, already looking towards like, hey, what's next year's draft look like? What are the prospects doing and things like that? You should be completely locked into what the major league club is doing right now, and the best place to do that is at RoyalsReview.com. Also, a lot of amazing stuff going on down on the farm. I just talked about Bolin's immaculate inning, but we have at least 2 teams locked in for postseason appearances: the Omaha Storm Chasers and the Quad Cities River Bandits. Though, hey, more baseball is more baseball, and I absolutely love it. Plus, I feel like we had talked about Spencer Nivens a little bit. 15 home runs since the start of August.
No one in affiliated ball has more home runs than Spencer Nivens over that span. He's out homered Ohtani. He's out homered Judge. Now, he's playing at a different level.
Yes.
But still yeah. That doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean he's better than Aaron Judge. But it does mean those are some impressive numbers.
Exactly. That's not something that I would have even imagined 15 home runs in about 5 weeks, give or take. That is insane. He has 20 total home runs on the year, the most in the Royals system, according to Preston Farr, a friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
So a lot, and he's with the River Bandits. He's one of the reasons why they slid into the postseason. So go check them out. But you can also follow along with any major minor league news at royalsreview.com.
You know who else is with the River Bandits?
I think the Royals' top 2 prospects are
Jack
with the River
Caglione
Bandits.
started there, and Blake Mitchell got promoted specifically for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. He looked
so
right.
They're like, hey, Blake, get a taste of this postseason action. We want you to be feeling this as you come through the system and debut with the big club in a couple of years.
Yeah, maybe so. And we're also forgetting about Frank Mazzucato, who is, I know,
frequently forget about Frank Mazzucato.
A lot of folks do, and I don't blame him. Preston likes to rib folks who point to Frank's velocity as like, oh, well, like, why is that an issue? Because he is ultimately very productive in Quad Cities right now. He had 4 shutout innings on Friday, and I just lost the number of strikeouts he had, but 4 shutout innings, I think, of 2 hit ball with no walks.
It was a lot of strikeouts.
Yeah. And he has, I'm not saying like he's going to be pushing for the rotation next year, come spring training, nothing like that. But progress is progress. And that is what Royals fans should be excited about down on the farm.
My problem with Mazzucato is not his velocity. It's the fact that he is in his 3rd professional season and still at high A.
And I think that's absolutely fair, especially
not
when
dominating either.
Right.
Like, he's pitching well, but he's not dominating.
Right. And especially when you look at the guy that they drafted immediately after him, Kudrna, he's already a AA at least. And he has the stuff and the potential, one that landed him in the futures game this summer, but also warranted that promotion, saying, hey, let's get you a little taste of some more advanced competition and keep you here once next season starts. Yeah.
And it's not like, and Kudrna is the same age.
Yeah.
As Mazzucato. So this isn't an age thing.
No, they were both high schoolers when they were drafted. So I'm hopeful that we see some new stuff from Mazzucato come next year. We've talked immensely about shifting priorities and processes down in the minor leagues. Maybe, hate to say it like this, but maybe Mazzucato just doesn't fit what they're looking for in a pitcher right now. That could be the case. But either way, he's still in the organization. I'm still rooting for him at the end of the day. Jeremy, before we get to reviews, I do want to talk about your article that came out this weekend. You touched on it a little bit earlier on, but go and give our listeners a little.
So the headline is the Royals are definitely going to the playoffs. And I actually wrote that, as I said, a week and a half ago. I was in the middle of writing it when Vinny got hurt. And I was like, well, I better write about Vinny. And I can just write this next week. And then they went on the 7-game losing streak. And I'm like, And then I looked at the standings and I'm like, no, this is actually still true because the other teams aren't winning either.
Right.
So it is. And it's only got, I went through team by team for the Twins, the Guardians, the Red Sox, and the Tigers. And I was like, how many wins do I think they're going to end the season with? And I came up with the Guardians are on pace for 90 the way I was seeing it. And that they did win an extra game against the Dodgers. So maybe they're on for 91 now. And then I thought, the Twins are on pace for, I think I had them at 88, 89. Let me see if I can find this real quick. 88 wins. And that was if they took 2 out of 3 from the Royals. So now they're aiming for 86 wins.
Yes.
I had the Royals were on for 90 wins. Then they won an extra one. Then they lost an extra one. Then they lost an extra one. And then they won 2 extra ones. So now I guess they're on pace. But if the rest of my predictions are right, which I don't know why they would be, since none of them previous to this are right, they would also be on pace for 91 wins. The Tigers and Red Sox, I said, are looking at 82 wins, which is just, it's not even close to getting it done. And here's the thing, if the Royals, so this actually looks better now than when I wrote it Friday, obviously, because the Royals won 2 more games than I thought they were in a 3-game stretch. Now that they're on pace for 91 wins and the Guardians are on pace for 91 wins, assuming that they lose today, which We still don't know. I'm not even, the last I checked, neither team had scored in that one yet. The Royals, if they tie the Guardians, they won the season series against them, they win the division. So they only have to tie the Guardians. That's all they have to do.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of, like, we're back to kind of where we were a week ago when they had just a week and a half ago when they had just taken 3 out of 4 from the Guardians. And we're like, okay, they're closer to being the best team in baseball than they are to missing the playoffs. We're there again, right back there again after a 7-game losing streak.
Sorry, that's so funny.
Yeah, like people were freaking out. And I'm like, they're not going to lose forever. They're not going to lose forever. It would take just a ridiculous collapse for them to miss the postseason. And they're like, it could happen though. And then they sweep the Twins, y'all. It didn't. It's not happening. It's not. The odds are really long for them to win the division. Would really be helped by the Guardians losing today.
It would, no.
That would put them at 2.5. And actually, they're down 2-0 in the bottom of the 5th now. I just pulled it up again. The 2.5 with 18 to play is doable. Not easy.
It is.
But it's doable, especially when you consider that the last 15 are against teams that the Royals should beat a lot.
Yes. And I think it's gonna be interesting because if the stars align and if I'm doing my math correctly, maybe they go into that Detroit Tigers series and they could be the ones to put the final nail in the coffin for the Tigers. The Tigers still.
I wrote that article and people were commenting, well, if the Tigers sweep the Royals, they could be in it. It could happen. And I'm like, sure. Yeah, if the Tigers sweep the Royals. And now we're sitting here and we're talking about, well, if the Royals sweep the Tigers, then the Tigers just aren't going to the postseason. And they're not even catching the Twins.
And at that point, so if my math serves correctly, the Royals have 6 games between now and their first game against the Detroit Tigers.
That sounds right.
If the best case scenario comes the Royals' way, they will go into that first game against the Tigers with a chance to eliminate them at that moment. I'm sorry, that makes my early Royals heart so very happy.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, I hear you.
So it's a good time to be a Royals fan. It still is. I know the vibes were in the gutter just not too long ago.
Yeah, even if everyone keeps calling me an optimist, I keep saying I'm a realist. These are just the numbers. Yep. I'm just giving you the numbers. I'm not saying, well, the Royals are going to win like 15 of their last 20, so it's fine. I'm like, well, if the Royals lose if the Royals only win 7 of the last 20, they would probably still go. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not optimism. That's realism.
Exactly.
And even I was like, Jacob, as they lost the 7th game, I was like, Jacob, I don't know how much longer I could do this, man. This is rough.
That optimism, quote unquote, thread was pretty. It was under a lot of stress.
I really tend much more towards pessimism than optimism as a general rule, which is what makes my preseason predictions especially funny to me. I don't know how other people feel about them. Before the season, I predicted the Royals would win 84 games, that they would miss the playoffs. They would win 84 games. Bobby Witt would win the MVP. Cole Reagans would win the Cy Young. And I didn't truly believe any of that. I was just like, I'm going to be wrong no matter what I do. So why don't I just predict what I want to happen?
That's fair.
And so that's what I did. And then it's like, oh, turns out I might be the closest to picking what actually happened.
Well, are you the last person standing, right? Everyone's
No, there's a couple. Somebody had them 81 and 81, I think. No,
okay.
So we've still got Alex Duvall predicted them with 79 wins.
Okay.
And then we've got Brian Henry predicted them with 80 wins.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm one of 3 that are still standing. And by the time we talk to you again Wednesday, it's possible, I won't say it's likely, but it's possible that I will be the last one standing. And as the Royals were just losing left and right for that 7-game winning streak, the other realists among the Royals review writers were like, it's possible that they only win 85 and they go to the postseason. I'm like, man, if the Royals win 85, I predicted 84, I will look really, really smart. And now we're back to like, That's probably going to be closer to 90 than 84.
Hey, you're still a ball knower, Jeremy. Don't you worry about that.
I will take that L all day long and twice on Sunday.
Hell yeah. And sorry, one more thing because everyone is going to be scoreboard watching this. I don't know, like the next week. I'm sorry, the next 3 weeks probably.
Yeah, I mean, just until the Royals are officially eliminated from the division or officially capture the division, I will be scoreboard watching.
The compelling scoreboard watching right now is going to be watching the other AL Central matchups.
Yep.
Okay. Right now, nothing else really matters. I think that's just the truth of it. I do find it interesting because you go and look at the Guardians' remaining strength of schedule. So like the winning percentage of the teams that they face off against, it says 498, which is like, okay, so they're playing mostly under 500 ball clubs. But then I went and looked at their actual schedule.
Yeah.
And they have 3 against the Chicago White Sox, which are just weighing that down. They have 4
also the Guardians are 5-5 against the White Sox this year.
I don't know how. I don't know
how either. But if you're 5-5 against, I can't pick you to go 3-0 against the White Sox if you split the season series to this point. You got to go 2-1, right? They have to. They can't go 1-2.
No,
it couldn't happen.
Especially when you host the Tampa Bay Rays for 4, you host the Minnesota Twins for 4. And then we were talking about the Cardinals earlier. They have 3 against the Cardinals, 2 against the Reds. And then they finish off the season with, I'm just double checking the number here, they have 3 against the Houston Astros. So they don't have an easy slate. I'm not saying they have the gauntlet or anything like that, but you face off against two other
park.
No, it's not a walk in the park. Thank you. That's the best way to put it.
The 4 against the Twins are really interesting to me because in my predictions, I said they would go 3-1 against the Twins. They've had their number all year, and man, I don't think I can change that after watching the Twins this weekend. But it's hard to take 3 in a 4-game set. So if they split that, there's a loss. I have them going 1-2 against the Astros in that final series. And I think that it's going to come down to the final series, whether the Royals win the division or not. Could very well come down to that final series while they're playing in Atlanta and Cleveland is hosting.
I just got chills thinking about that, man, because that's a good. We all remember the energy that the fan base had in similar situations like that, and it's just great to be at that point again. And Bobby Witt Jr. and Kyle Isbell were talking about that after Saturday night's game, talking about the energy in Kauffman Stadium, talking about how loud it was, the fans out there. It was great. Even a Sunday afternoon game, you nearly draw. I think it was
over 29,000.
Is it?
Yeah, I thought they said 29,036 or something like that.
I got 26,477.
Okay.
So it's still a good
respectable numbers, especially compared to last year.
Yes, and I will put this not jab in there, but I will say I'll leave it up to other talking heads and Kansas City media to talk about the attendance stuff. Okay, that's not my forte. I'm here to talk about winning Kansas City Royals baseball, and they have 3 more against the New York Yankees. Jeremy, I want to get your final word on this. How will they fare against the Yankees?
Gosh, I gotta think they're gonna go 2-1. I have, based on how the Yankees have been playing, based on how the Royals pitching has looked, and the fact that 2 of their 3 best starters, it's been back and forth all year between Singer and Waka. I think Waka's been a little bit more consistent, especially post All-Star break. So 2 of your 3 best starters are going in this series, and your worst starters going against, I think their worst. I think Rodon has been the worst of those 3.
I believe so. I'm not sure.
And Stroman are probably very comparable.
Probably so. So
you've got those 2 games, and then you've got your real ace, Reagan's, going Wednesday night, Wednesday afternoon. I'm not actually sure what time that game is played. But Wednesday, you got to find a way to take 2 out of 3 of those, I think. And if they do, it's going to be game on for the division.
It is.
If they lose 2, they probably lose at least one game to the Guardians in the race, and now you're 3 games closer to the end of the year. That's going to be really hard to make it up over that span, especially since you're not playing them. Everything would be different if they'd beaten the Guardians 2 out of 3 this week, like I predicted that they would. They would they'd be 1.5 back if the Guardians lost today, and they'd be in great position to try and catch them over the end. But it's going to be rough, and I'm going to bet that they don't quite pull it off. But it's going to be a dogfight for sure.
It is. It absolutely is, and I'm very much looking forward to the Royals not only facing off against the Yankees, but doing so in New York.
Yeah.
The Royals
Michael Massey better be in the lineup all 3 nights.
We better be. Yeah,
he loves New York, baby.
He loves that short porch in right field. That is his favorite. And what I was trying to get at is Saturday night's game, which was a very exciting game. I was worried the Royals were going to lose it for most of it, but that comeback win, the energy, that was a national game. And that was a great introduction to the Royals this season for many MLB fans out there. And I think you go to the New York market, and if the Royals go in there and take 2 out of 3 against the big, bad New York Yankees, more people are going to be talking about the Royals. And I look forward to that. I really do. Now, if they only take 1 out of 3, you chalk it up as like, well, it's the Yankees. But the Royals are going in looking for the upset, and I think they have all the tools to do so. And I think they're doing so at the right time.
And I do want to say that even as I think that it's extremely possible that the Royals will take 2 out of 3 for the Yankees, y'all, don't panic if the Yankees sweep them. It's not the end of the season. I told you this when they lost all 4 to the Astros. You didn't believe me. Look at where they are now. If they get swept by the Yankees, oh well. Go out and beat the other teams.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's just a fun time to be a Royals fan. I say that a lot, but it's because it's true right now, and we need to be enjoying this.
This is the most fun we've had since before the trade deadline, 2017.
Agreed. All right, Jeremy, let's go ahead and get on out of here with some Royals reviews. I'll go and start us off with an easy one. Before NFL Week 1 kicked off, we got news of who is going to be performing the Super Bowl halftime show.
Oh, did we? I missed that.
Yes, we did. Have you heard of the rapper Kendrick Lamar?
I have heard of him.
Yes, so he is going to be playing the halftime show.
That's a big get.
It is a very, very big get, and I'm reviewing this because I think it's an amazing choice.
Yeah.
This isn't a niche guy. I know many of our listeners might not know who he is, but
I'm not into the hip hop rap scene at all, but I've heard that name.
And especially with his recent beef, as the kids say, with Drake, his superstardom has, gotten way, way up here. And also he's a guy, he has a lot of former and current connections in the industry. I am sure he's going to be one of those performers where we say, hey, he's going to have 4 or 5 other folks who are worthy of playing the halftime show joining him up on stage. So I think it's going to be very, very fun. I think this is I think it's a timely choice. Like, I remember when they picked The Weeknd to perform the Super Bowl a while back, and I was like, well,
enjoyed way more than I would have expected. I didn't even know who The Weeknd was, but I was like, that dude's lost in a mirror of mazes, or a maze of mirrors. I don't know what's happening, but I'm having fun.
Yes, it was a very fun performance because he's a great performer. But I was looking at when they picked him, I was like, well, he's kind of most culturally relevant. I get, like, he was a household name like 3 years ago or something like that. But this is a pretty good pick, I think. So I approve it. I'm looking forward to it.
I still want Weird Al to do it one year.
And it would be fun. I think that boat's passed long time ago.
If it was going to happen, it would have happened. But I still want it. I will never not want that.
There you go. I think you need to have like a simulcast where it's just Weird Al like during the Super Bowl halftime, and you can just put that on instead of Kendrick or something like that. Just
go play the polka album in your own living room.
There are worse things to do during the halftime. But Jeremy, on to you. What do you have for a review?
Oh, goodness gracious. I haven't had time to watch anything or play anything.
Well, didn't you changed the game that you're playing in your Twitter name? I
started Hi-Fi Rush. I don't have a review about it yet.
Okay.
I can give you a preview, which is that I find that game utterly exhausting.
Really?
The levels are really long, and because of the rhythm-based action, which is a super cool concept. And the art's really cool. Like, the whole thing is just super cool. When I say it's exhausting, I don't mean that as a bad thing. I just mean, like, because of the rhythm-based action combat, I cannot at any point just, like, turn my brain off. Mm-hmm. I have to be constantly focused on the beat of the music and my navigation and my attacks and looking around for secrets and stuff to gather. It's just a lot of, like, there's no breaks.
No.
While you're playing that game, which isn't a bad thing, but it is exhausting for me. So it may take me a little bit to play it. I'm still trying to finish my platinum trophy for Cold Steel 4 as well, because that takes a couple of playthroughs. So I'm just kind of like skipping all the cutscenes and doing everything I need to do there. Mm. I did start a new Dimension 20 series. I guess I can talk about.
Okay.
Misfits and Magic. So they announced that the next season of Dimension 20 is going to be Misfits and Magic 2. So I was like, well, I guess I better go watch Misfits and Magic 1, which is it's actually one of the few Dimension 20 that's not DM'd by Brennan Lee Mulligan. It's DM'd by Abria. I don't know her last name off the top of my head, but she's a big, like, Dungeons and Dragons person, social media, like, does all the stuff. She's been on some seasons of the show as a player. She's DMing Misfits and Magic. I assume she's DMing Misfits and Magic 2. Brennan is a player for the first time that I've ever seen. I know he's done it, for like Critical Role and whatever. So that was fun. And he's playing a character who's like an evil wizard who doesn't want to be an evil wizard. Misfits and Magic is like Harry Potter if 4 Americans were dropped into the 6th year suddenly. It's bonkers, as all good Dimension 20 is, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I'm only a few episodes into it. It's very silly. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. But if you're like, I don't want to do Harry Potter because J.K. Rowling, then and you're still looking for that kind of fix, Misfits and Magic, that's an opportunity for you.
Excellent. Alrighty, folks, we're going to get on out of here with our Sunday evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Jacob Milham. He is Jeremy Greco. Our social media links are down in the podcast description below, but the best way to support the podcast is by following the podcast. You can follow the podcast on social media, or you could subscribe/follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening. We appreciate you being here, and until next time, go Royals!